the philosophy of Theophrastus concerning the generations of the elements. Note, the philosophy of Paracelsus concerning the generation of the four elements and concerning the three prime principles, sulfur, mercury, and salt, appears to have been regarded by himself and by his editors as an essential part of his doctrine and practice of alchemy. To include it in the first section of this translation is by no means outside the issues of hermetic chemistry. Paracelsus was not the first adept who regarded the process in the accomplishment of the magnum opus as offering a rigorous analogy with the creation of the greater world. All alchemy insists on it. He who succeeded in accomplishing the grand magisterium, the confection of the philosopher's stone, became initiated thereby into the secret of the mysterium magnum. And, on the other hand, an exact comprehension of the true principles which obtained in the universal Genesis was enough to possess anyone with a full and practical illumination concerning the arcanum of philosophy. The cosmological philosophy of Paracelsus is the necessary complement of his alchemy, and whether or not their combined study is likely to throw light upon either. An opportunity must be offered to the student for the comparison of the two. The treatises which have been selected for the purpose are translated from the second volume of the Geneva Folio, and the copious notes which have been added are derived from analogous writings which Paracelsus left unfinished, or which, for some other reason, have come down to us in an imperfect state. End note, the element of air. Text 1. In the beginning, Ileaster, which is nothing, was divided, thus giving and arranging the four elements. Note when God determined to form the world and deliberated with his divine prudence concerning its nature and the manner of its creation, he divided it into four parts or bodies, which he designed to be the mother of all things, but subject to him whom God intended to create after his own image, even the man Adam. When therefore the matter had been deliberated on and decreed by God, the foresaid bodies were created, that is, heaven, earth, water, air. For, as the scripture saith, heaven was created first, then earth, and subsequently the two others. Hence you must know that these four bodies, mothers or mattresses, exist that they may produce fruit, and furnish the necessities for man's nourishment. Thus, for example, the earth brings forth its peculiar products, but it is man, and not the earth, who makes use of them. Similarly, heaven is a body, free by itself, whence fruits proceed simply for the use of man. Labor mediorum pref. End note. It was even as the seed from which springs the stem. What the seed gives forth it does not receive in the same form into itself again. But this Ileaster again attracts to itself the four elements. Thus that is dissolved and becomes what it was before the four elements were produced, provided only 1 year of the world has elapsed. The four elements are the growth produced from the Ileaster. And the seed does not give those very things from which the infant is produced after this year of the world. But the four elements are both mothers and daughters. Of this family nothing is found surviving after death, but its end is the same as its origin, and so whatever is in it perishes at the same time. Although another world follows after, which is the daughter of this one in name still, it is not so in form, in essence, or the like. For this will not pass away, but will remain like the soul, which is indeed made and created, but not mortal. Such is also the lot of this world. Text 2 now. It is quite certain that the eternal Father, who is not only the Father of his own Son, but also of all things, mortal and immortal, permanent and transitory, blessed and damned together, created domor, that is, heaven and earth, the firmament, and the water, to which he also gave his own divine will. We will not further discuss this subject here, but the same things can be read in the Paramir. Note, but more completely and copiously in the treatises and fragments of treatises from which the ensuing notes have been rendered. End note. He formed the natural from the non-natural. From that which had never perceived any nature, he produced another nature, and following that nature he willed that yet another nature should be produced. Whilst the year revolves wherein his majesty himself carries on the divine rule, which man now moderates and possesses, yet these primal natures differ, so that from the earth springs the pear tree, from the sand the thistle, from the water kachimi, from the sky chaos, and from the fire snow. But seeing how wonderful these things are, and how unlike they seem to the first source from which they sprang, we ought to make it a matter of knowledge and of philosophy that the element of water is not water only, but a mineral as well, that the element of earth is not earth only, but a grape as well, and so with the rest. For that philosophy is vain which gives it out that the earth is an element indeed, but not a nut, or that fire is an element, but not snow. So too, those who say that the four elements exist in all and everything advance mere nonsense. Text 3, the earth is an element, and whatever is produced from it, so is the water and all produced therefrom. So then that is an element which produces. And an element is a mother, and there are four of them: air, fire, water, earth. From these four matrices, everything in the whole world is produced. And the speech is inconsiderate of those who assert that an element is simply endowed with a complexion, warm, dry, cold, moist, or a compound of these. All these things are in all these four elements. You can understand it thus. The earth is cold and dry, cold and moist, warm and dry, warm and moist. This is how matters stand. Whatever thing which is warm and dry grows out of the earth, grows out of that which in the earth is warm and dry. Whatever is or is produced cold and moist is produced from that in the earth which is of a similar nature. So also from fire four complexions proceed. Snow, for example, from that in the fire which is cold and dry, and lightning from that in the fire which is warm and dry. It is the same with the other two elements. I would have you then, at this point, before all, to be advised not to determine the elements according to their complexions, but according to their forms, that is. What are the four matrices which they have within them? The earth is material, clayey, conglutinous. Such it is whether it be warm, dry, cold, or moist. The water is humid, sensible, tangible, but not corporeally, not materially. And such is the element, whether it be cold or warm. The fire is a firmament, and is the element of fire, though it be in one place warm, in another cold. The air is a heaven which comprises all things, and is moist, warm, cold, or dry, as shall hereafter be set forth. Text 4 now, in order to advance towards the established principle with regard to the elements. Understand this. The Iliaster was originally distributed into four parts. The air, which is a heaven embracing all things. Fire, which is a firmament producing day and night, cold and heat. Earth, which affords fruits of all kinds and a solid foundation for our feet, and water from whence are given forth all minerals, and half the means of nutriment for living things. These nutriments are twofold, one found in air and fire, the other in earth and water. The two former nourish us as if spiritually and invisibly, the two latter materially and corporeally. These four elements are divided into two classes. One is constituted of air and fire, the other of earth and water. The air sustains fire, the earth water. Air and fire hold water and earth, while these two hold air and fire. So then all things were created in due order, that the one might support, seek for, and nourish the other. Thus the Iliaster was divided into one domor, of which there are two globules, an outer and an inner, each enclosed with two elements. Beyond is nothing, so far as we know. Within is what we see and touch, and what the light of nature suggests to us. He who created these things is not among us, but dwells without us. But he who was begotten of him is amongst us. Still, we must not philosophize further concerning the four elements that nature teaches and points the way for us. Text 5, in the beginning, the body of the four elements was founded with that form and amplitude in which the heaven lies extended, and it was made corruptible or perishable so far as the air surrounds it. Note, but now we must understand what is the nature of the body of heaven. Earth, water, air have each their peculiar bodies, but indeed all the four bodies of the four elements are made of nothing, that is, they are made only by the word of God. This nothing, whence is produced something, turns into substance and body, which body of all the four elements is distinguished into three species, so that the creative fiat resulted in a triple body. Thus the earth and the other elements are all threefold. At the same time, there is such a distinction between the elements that the four things are not one body. The air is one body, the earth is another, the water a third. So also would be heaven if these four had a like body. But the earth has three bodies, and so also have water, heaven, and air. And yet a piece of wood is one body, a metal another, a stone another, a sponge another. So also the four elements of bodies are distinct and separate, as though someone were to take lead, make of it minium, ceruse, glass, and spirit of Saturn. So then, these three species are distributed into four elements, a peculiar body being assigned to each. To pay more exact attention to these numbers, God himself chose three, and constituted all things out of three, and separated all three. For the origin of this number is immediately from God, the principle in the deity being three. Now the word also was threefold, and the word is the beginning of heaven and earth and of all creatures. All things are synthesized in three, and there is nothing on earth which consists not of and in three, and is reduced again into that three. On the one hand, then, it is evident that each creature can be distributed into three, each in its place. But on the other hand, what they dogmatize concerning the four things or elements, to the effect that each thing consists of four elements, that is false. Each thing, however, contains in itself one complexion and not more, nor can it have any other element than that which it receives from its mother. For instance, every herb has only one element, that is, of the earth. Every stone has one element, that is, of the water. But in addition to this, it receives a complexion, frigid and humid, frigid and dry, warm and humid, warm and dry. Yet that is not a whole element, but the element is the matrix, as water or earth. For instance, man is taken from the slime of the earth, but the element is not slime, it is quintessence. Yet it again becomes an element, that is, it returns to the element with the distinction which subsists between an element and flesh. Hence the elements only recur into three, and these three are the prime matter of the elements. However, the fashion of the prime matter of water, earth, air, and heaven is diverse, for the number three constitutes only three species in reality, which three make a perfect body. And these same are found by art in all bodies of nature. These three are the first matter and have only one name. The first matter is as God, and as in the deity there are three persons, so here each species is separate by itself as to its office. But the three offices are comprehended under the one name of the first matter. This first matter has been distributed by God among four parts or elements. Whatsoever resides in the first matter of the earth is being separated or has been separated into earth. The case is the same with the other elements. So everything has been ordained into its predestinated form, earth having been ordained to be earth with its office, and so of the rest. So all things consist of one body, and yet there are four bodies, and the four elements are all distributed into four bodies, and are formed from one matter which is in itself triple, having been originally formed out of the Word. The three first things are three parts, namely fire, salt, and balsam. All bodies consist of these three, all elements and all fruits thereof. Earth is threefold in its body: fire, salt, and balsam, while that which grows from it is similarly distributed into three species. The body of a tree is fire, salt, and balsam, and the things which are generated from the balsam, fire, salt, and balsam. It is the same with those fruits which have water for their matrix. It is the same with heaven, of which the fruits are the sun, etc. It is in like manner with snow and rain. The art, therefore, of nature does not, then, teach us how to extract anything out of fruits except fire, salt, and balsam, which also are so separated from one another by the force of fire that the fire, salt, and balsam become separate. Now, fire is also called sulfur, salt, balm, and liquor, mercury. It is necessary, however, that we should have a clear idea what an element is. Now, man has a large body containing many substances, but that which is the man himself, namely soul and spirit, is a small thing. The reason why the body is called man is because the man remains hidden in the body. So also the eye is a considerable part in man, but the force which sees is very small in respect of the eye. In like manner, the earth is called an element, whereas it is a rude body, and its true element is hidden therein, invisibly, like the spirit in man. It is the same with the other elements, which are indeed corporeal, but are yet spirits according to their nature and substance. So often then, as you hear that this or that proceeds from an element, understand that it proceeds from the element itself, and not from its body. In man the tongue speaks and does not speak, for the spirit speaks in it, whose intimate permixture and union with the body causes it to be thought that the body does everything. The color of the box tree is the spirit of the box tree. What there is else is its body. The soul of musk is in its odor. In corals, the color is the spirit. Thus, all fruits, like their element, have spirit as well as body, and the true fruit is not seen by the eyes. Yet there is a certain difference between the natural and the supernatural spirit, for the first is corporeal and material, subsisting in a corporeal body, but the second is altogether destitute of a body. The body of the natural spirit is clothed by nature with another body of its own element. But concerning heaven, it is to be noted that God has given it the name of firmament. The firmament is the heaven and its whole substance. The three other elements are included in the firmament, as the egg in its shell. By the demonstration of the name which he has given to it, God teaches that he has endowed the firmament with power, that it may be as a sure shell, wherein all the creatures of nature are firmly contained. And just as the yolk remains immovable in its place, whether the egg be put up or down, so is it with heaven. Wherever we dwell, we live at a high level or a low, and can call ourselves dwellers on high or dwellers below. For a circle has neither summit nor base. Liber Meteorum, chapter 2, end note. There was the throne of God and the center of his kingdom, from which center the world was created, but so that it should be something mortal and perishable created by God. To rightly understand this, you must know that from that center the world arose and was made material. On this seat Christ hung from the cross. On this seat sat the prophets. It is the footstool of God. Here, therefore, material and corporeal things are made God, and his work the center of his kingdom and his throne. It should be known then at the outset, and before the philosophy itself is unfolded, that God has made the center of his heaven, and even himself, perishable. For as corporally he is called the sun, so the world is his house. But although it be thus made and created, still we must believe that it will not perish as it was produced. Of man the heart will endure. Of the world the flower will be permanent. Text 6. As to the manner in which God created the world, take the following account. He originally reduced it to one body while the elements were developing. This body he made up of 3 ingredients, mercury, sulfur, and salt, so that these 3 should constitute one body. Of these 3 are composed all the things which are or are produced in the 4 elements. These 3 have in themselves the force and the power of all perishable things. In them lie hidden the mineral, day, night, heat, cold, the stone, the fruit, and everything else, even while not yet formed. It is even as with wood, which is thrown away and is only wood, yet in it are hidden all forms of animals, of plants, of instruments, which anyone who can carve what else would be useless invents and produces. So the body of Iliaster was a mere trunk, but in it lay hidden all herbs, waters, gems, minerals, stones, and chaos itself, which things the Supreme Creator alone carved and fashioned most subtly, having removed and cast away all that was extraneous. First of all, he produced and separated the air, this being formed from. The remainder issued forth the other 3 elements, fire, water, earth. From these he afterwards took away the fire, while the other 2 remained, and so on in due succession. Text 7, the 4 fields, therefore, having been in this way set apart and separated, there remained also 4 storehouses for keeping the 4 elements, namely the hot, the cold, the moist, the dry. Each of these was far from being unimportant. First the air was arranged, afterwards the fire, then the earth, and lastly the water in the following way. From the air proceeded chaos, the throne, the chain, the foundation. From the fire, night and day, the sun and the moon. From the earth, trees and herbs, grasses and fruits. From the water, minerals and stones. Of these the succession was so arranged that from the superfluity was continually produced something else. For instance, from the Iliaster of the earth beech wood was extracted and the wood of apples removed. Each was disposed in its own place, nothing being corrupted or intermixed. In water gold was separated from the rest of the metals, and afterwards the others also were removed in turn. In the fire, the cold withdrew from the heat, the light from the darkness. In the air, chaos was set in order for preserving all things and for separating earth from heaven. These 4 ilii having been created and arranged according to elements, that is, according to the matrices of their fruits, the air was prepared before all else, then afterwards the fire. These 2 were linked together in union. Afterwards the earth too and the water, being separated from the 2 former, were joined in one. These are now conjoined Iliasti. The air is by itself, and the fire, in like manner, also the earth and the water. Thus it was that God made the material center of his throne, and afterwards sundered it in 3 primal elements, from which constantly emerges everything that is born. Without these 3, nothing in the 4 Iliasti can grow, but while they grow they are elements, and so moreover they lose their name of Iliasti and are called elements. Text 8, these 4 elements were sundered into their own places and seats, so that none of them should be mixed. All these were removed, just as a sculptor, when making a statue, throws away what does not suit the intended image. So there are 4 elements, but only 3 primary ones, 3 in the air, 3 in the fire, 3 in the earth, and 3 in the water. Everywhere there is only a single triad of the primaries, that is, 1 mercury in all, 1 sulfur in all, 1 salt in all. Yet they differ in their properties. Whatever is growing, herb, leaf, grass, or the like, was relegated to the earth. Whatever is mineral withdrew into the water. Whatever is warm, cold, day, night, betook itself to the fire. Whatever is air spread itself out over chaos. And all these 3 are one, each in itself. It is just as when a stone is divided into 4 parts, and out of one is made a statue, out of another a pitcher, out of a third some other kind of a vessel, and out of the 4th a milestone. Yet all are stones, nay, all one stone, though divided into 4 portions. Of these Iliasti there are 4, and no more, these being sufficient. So God disposed the world in a quaternary. He was satisfied with this number, though he could have made 8 parts. 1 portion of nutriment he conferred on the air, a 2nd on the fire, a 3rd on the earth, a 4th on the water. Nowhere was there any deficiency, and now it is further necessary that in the course of our philosophizing we should go on to treat of these 4 under the name of elements, to tell of their possibilities and performances, and to state in what they excel. We will begin with the air and conclude our philosophy with the water, adding such explanations as the nature of insensible things requires. Text 9, the element of the air was appointed for no other purpose than to be the abode of the other 3, each to be conserved, as it were, within its close in the following way. Note, The elements and all that exists are built upon the element of air, even as a house upon its foundations. We should philosophize, however, concerning that which sustains the air. This power is situated in the exterior part of the air in which the triune God dwells, so ruling and sustaining the air that it does not yield, nor is broken. For it is impossible that perishable things should fall into the sphere of the imperishable. Moreover, it cannot fall, because all things tend upwards, nothing downwards, nor is there any bottom or profundity. For the air is so compacted and confirmed in a circle that it can no more be broken or dissolved than the external kingdom can perish till its time arrives, when it will collapse inward towards the center. The air and stars rushing towards the globe of earth, and then the globe shall by them be so utterly consumed that not a single ash shall remain. For the manner of this destruction shall be such that nothing shall collapse outwardly from the circle, but all inwardly to the center. And this is the highest secret of philosophy, that the circle rushes to the center because there is no profundity outside. Alias liber primus meteorum de elemento aeris. End note. The air encloses in itself every mortal thing, and shuts it off from what is immortal, as a wall divides a city from the fields. It strengthens the world and keeps it together, as a dam does a marsh. And just as there is nothing in an egg to one who looks at it from without or outside the egg, which agrees with what is inside, so the sky is a shell dividing heaven and earth. Just as the eggshell separates the egg from what is outside it. The air, again, is like a skin in which is stored up a body, the whole world to wit, and wherein the earth is contained and preserved. The air, then, is the sky, a skin, or eggshell, or wall, or mound, beyond which nothing can burst through, and within which nothing can break in. Moreover, the air is breath, from which all draw their life. This is truly air itself, and puts forth the air which nourishes the four elements, and at the same time sustains the life of man. Without it, none could live. Without this, no element could advance, no wind could blow, no rain or snow could fall, no sun could shine, no summer could flourish, no water could flow, no earth could sustain. All this force proceeds from the air and is attracted by the four elements. For as the lungs every moment inhale air, so does the earth, while the water and the fire each do the very same thing. That is a palpable error which lays it down that winds are caused by the air. They burst in upon us like poison, not as a means of life. The first element brings air, but fire gives the winds. Text 10 from the same element 2 flows forth the power by which fire is joined to the air, so that it may not fall down. Thus it is like a chain which without materiality or visibility holds together and binds. This it does by means of its chaos, which it inserts between the pellicle and the earth. There is also a middle space extending from heaven to earth in which are balanced the fire, the earth, and the water. And as the chicken is sustained in the egg by its albumin without touching the shell, so chaos sustains the globe and prevents it from tottering. This chaos is invisible, though it appears of a slight green tint. It is an intangible albumin, having the power and property of sustaining so that the earth shall not fall from its position. As the chick in its albumin, so this globe of earth and water is balanced in the air. As a ship is borne up by the ocean, so is this globe by the air. It is one vast and marvelous albumin which invisibly supports the globe of earth and water. It bears up even the firmament itself, which is placed in it as the seed of the cucumber is placed in its mucilage. And as every morsel of flesh lies in its own liquid, or the generating seed in the sperm, so the stars lie in this albumin, and move therein like a bird in its flight. In no other way are they borne up than what is clear from the illustrations which are named. There is at least only this difference, that the chaos is unlike the albumin or the sperm in that it is impalpable and extremely subtle. Otherwise, in all its powers and energies, it corresponds exactly to those things which have been enumerated. Text 11, while discussing the powers of this element, it should, moreover, be pointed out that the air and its chaos and the sky exist in a round form which is inherent in them. No one can point out or distinguish what is above or what is below. Let us give an example. If it could be brought about that one should be shut up within an egg, it would be impossible to know which part looked towards the sky and which towards the earth. Note, air preserves the elements and all creatures so that they may persist in their course and center. Land and sea are the center of a circle of which the air is the circumference. Earth and water constitute one globe, resting on nothing, but free on all sides, being encompassed by the element of air, which is like a vast chaos, which conceals that which is called heaven by the ignorant. Within this chaos, all creatures are included and involved. Between the circle of the air and the globe of earth and water, which is at the center, a sustaining operation intervenes, which may be compared to the albumin interposed between the shell and yolk of an egg. Ibid. End note. The rotundity prevents there being any up or down. So we are prisoned within a shell, and do not know which is up and which is down. Walking over the whole world, we look up to the sky, and everywhere there is height, whilst at the same time everywhere there is depth. The cause lies in the rotundity of the globe and of the sky, and thus it is natural to every mortal body that all things grow in a threefold line, and not only man walks, but also trees, veins of metal, and springs take this course. As God created the circle of the globe in the sky, so he founded also the semicircle, the diameter, and the meridian, a threefold line, and other similar ones. For in heaven and earth, in fire and water, are found all lines and all circles. Here too are the true geography, cosmography, and geometry. By the elementary geography of the air are conserved the structures of the air, that is the sun and moon, all the stars, the trees of the earth, and other things, as the minerals of the water and the rest. Here too, beyond a doubt, is found the true basis of all geometry, where man stands like the straight line looking up to heaven. Of this geometry, God alone is the artificer, the mason, the geometrician. From this line nothing falls away or emerges, be it water, fire, earth, tree, man, beast. All things tend towards this aerial geometry, which God made engraved as a mason does the statues on a tower. Text 12 now. As to the philosophy of the three prime elements, it must be seen how these flourish in the element of air. Mercury, sulfur, and salt are so prepared as the element of air that they constitute the air and make up that element. Originally, the sky is nothing but white sulfur coagulated with the spirit of salt and clarified by mercury, and the hardness of this element is in this pellicle and shell thus formed from it. Then, secondly, from the three primal parts it is changed into two, one part being air and the other chaos, in the following way. The sulfur resolves itself by the spirit of salt in the liquor of mercury, which of itself is a liquid distributed from heaven to earth, and is the albumen of the heaven and the mid-space. It is clear, a chaos, subtle, and diaphanous. All density, dryness, and all its subtle nature are resolved, nor is it any longer the same as it was before. Such is the air. The third remnant of the three primals has passed into air. Thus, if wood is burnt, it passes into smoke. So this passes into air, remains in its air, to the end of its elements, and becomes sulfur, mercury, and salt, which are substantially consumed and turned into air, just as the wood which becomes smoke. It is, in fact, nothing but the smoke of the three primal elements of the air. So then, nothing further arises from the element of air beyond what has been mentioned. Many of the ancients and later writers, nay, even some now living, ascribe wind to the air, making out its cause to be the mobility of the sky. That is all nothing. It never reaches the sky, and the air is by itself, coming forth from its element as smoke from wood. Whoever wishes to understand more clearly about it and what its motion is, let him read about the properties of fire, where more is set down than can be here comprised. Book 2 concerning the element of fire, treatise 1, text 1. We have spoken thus far concerning the element of air, according to the position in which the elements have been arranged. The air is first in position, next to it is the fire. These two constitute and surround the entire globe. Note, fire and air constitute the chaos which encircles the globe of earth and water. The two superior elements send down their impressions upon the two inferior. Fire is disposed and digested by God into the stars. Ibid, chapter 7, end note. We shall next philosophize as to what concerns the element of fire. First of all, from the Iliaster were separated the air and the fire. Afterwards, these two were sundered the one from the other, so that the air occupied the first place, as we pointed out in the former book. The next place to this the fire occupied. By a process of separation, these two elements, air and fire, were divided. From the air were produced the heavens. From the fire came forth the firmament. As in the air there is only chaos and nothing besides, so in the element of fire we find nothing but heat and cold, light and darkness. But whatever withdraws from the globe and from the air is sustained in the element of fire. It is not, however, called the element of fire because it can only burn, as many have foolishly said. It is not the element of fire which burns, but that which burns and is contrary to it is congelation. The element of fire is not by its constitution warm and dry. The cold and the moist come from the element of fire. They are quite beside the mark, then, who seek the element of fire in the element of earth or of water. Though these probably produce something of a warm complexion, still that warmth does not constitute the element of fire. This element is not, therefore, called an element because it is fire, but rather because in it the whole firmament subsists. It is an element from which should proceed day, night, brightness, white or red, rain, tempest, winds, and all impressions. It is also the place and portion of the four parts of creatures. Therefore it is called an element. For as the earth gives heat and cold together, though it be the element of earth, so is it to be understood also of fire. Yet there is a difference, because material fire is called an element when it is not really an element. It is not even produced by the element of fire, but it is like elementary fire in that position when it looks towards the sun. So also the water is like the element of fire in a place where it rains. Material fire, which we use, is in the four elements. It is called Tristo and exists in them thus. The element of water requires the element of fire for its operation. That fire remains in the element of water and shews itself in steel and in those stones where it exists. So is it with the air, and so with the other elements. Each has its own Tristo within itself, as is demonstrated in the nature of things. So too, the sun can shew its element in wood, can kindle and burn it, because it is of the same nature as that by which the element of fire moistens the earth with rain. As the element of fire moistens the earth, and it is its nature and property to do so, it kindles wood also by a mirror in the sun. The material fire is brought to the globe just as rain to the earth. Both come from one element divided as to their nature, but the fire which is extracted from stones and metals has penetrated thither from the sun by means of its own airs. As the earth is nourished by the sun, so is the one element by another. Of the three primaries, salt could not coagulate unless the element of fire were in it. So mercury could not give a body unless it contained in itself the element of water. So neither is sulfur without its terrestrial quality. The air is without material or body, impalpable. Therefore, of itself, like the other elements, it cannot give a body, but it works together with it, as the rest do. Text 2, having thus far explained the separation of the two elements, fire and water, it remains to speak of their order, which is as follows. Originally, the distribution of them was made into the sun, the moon, and the other stars. Beyond these, there is no element of fire. Whatever virtue they are endowed with beyond this is only trifling. This is more fully shewn in the treatise De Nature. Here it is sufficient to know that this element, the firmament, to wit, is nothing but stars. What these produce and send on the earth as snow, rain, wind, hail, cold, heat, night, day, summer, winter, and the like, all these things come from the element of fire, as an infant from its mother or an apple from its tree. This element of fire is placed in the element of air. For as the water and the earth are comprised in one globe, so the fire and the air are mingled in one, neither injuring the body of the other. They move freely in the air, not leaning or propped up on any foundation. As birds fly in the air, so the sun moves in the sky, that is, in the air. For just as it is appointed that man walks on the earth, the bird flies in the air, the fish swims in the water, and the gnome lives within the earth, so has it been arranged concerning the elements, that one lies still. Another flies, one is in this mode, another in that, not moving from one seat or place. Every star has its own special orbit, nor does one collide with another. For as no one man walks exactly like another, and yet there is one mode of progress for all, so is it with the stars. And as men by nature are not precisely alike, neither are the stars, so manifold is their nature and condition. On this topic, one need not philosophize more deeply than to say that all these things are arranged and constituted by fate. Treatise 2 concerning the sun, light, darkness, and night. Note, all the clarity which in the element produces night is fiery and twofold, white and red. The white is from mercury and salt, the red from pure sulfur. These two colors inhere in the three principles by reason of the predominant fire in the substance. The same are divided, the red into one part, the white into the other. The first is distributed among all the stars, the second into one only. But if the red, like the white, were compacted and digested into a single star, instead of into so many, the red splendor would be equally great with reference to redness, as is the white with reference to whiteness. On the other hand, were the white star distributed after the manner of the red, there would be a faint and perpetual daylight. Such a perfect and condensed splendor would not illuminate the earth, but one weaker and more divided. The universal splendor of the mercury has, however, been concentrated from the three prime principles into one orb or star, which receives its motion according to the will of the Creator. The motion of this star takes place round the globe. When it radiates upon the earth, there is day, but elsewhere night reigns, for all the brilliance of day is in it. And without its radiation, there is no brilliance upon earth. The red brilliance of the other stars is the light of the fire in red, only in sulfur, where there is no mercury or salt. De Meteoris, chapter 3. End note. In the first treatise, it was stated that the primal Iliaster was furnished with all the colors, and with brightness and splendor all mingled together. From thence the four elements were secreted. Herein shall be stated in due succession what was added or subjected to the element of fire. In the beginning, the first element, that is to say, the air, was extracted from the Iliaster, and afterwards the element of fire. From this a separation was made. First of all, the white brightness was drawn out, and therefrom was made a material body, the sun. Therein is all the white brightness of the element of fire. And besides, this is no white brightness at all in the whole element. The red transparency was also extracted and transferred to the stars, that is, to the moon and the other stars, which were distributed into many parts. While the white brightness was conglobated into one form, the red brightness was divided into many parts. Hence now follow day and night. For since all the white brightness was coagulated into one globe, it will be day wherever that globe is. Where that globe is not, there is no white brightness, but it is night and darkness. For the red brightness transfers no light to the white brightness. Moreover, it must also be known that in the element of fire two natures exist, a warm and a cold one. Heat is universal in the white brightness, cold in the red. All fire which is warm is in the sun, and not in any element besides. All coldness is in the stars, there is none in the sun. Hence it is clear that summer comes from the sun, winter and cold from the stars. In the sun is an expulsive heat, in the stars an expulsive cold. Thus, the sun emits from himself heat to the earth by means of his rays. For just as the wind blows from its cave, or as from the ground a stalk rises above the earth, so heat goes forth from the sun over the globe. Heat is the fruit of the sun on the globe, and it has no other fruit. Hence it follows that the sun has two operations, a greater and a lesser heat in this way. The sun divides his heat in two modes. Hence it is granted to the stars to lose their coldness. The matter stands thus. For us Germans, if the sun is supreme, his heat is greatest with us. Then the autumn and harvest are at hand. In winter the cold comes on, not because the sun is low and depressed, for it is the same sun which can by his rays shed heat everywhere, but because his harvest is not then imminent as in June. All fruits are then in a state of repose, and have been harvested. But below us, in Ethiopia and other places which verge towards the Antarctic pole, the sun is warm while with us he is cold. For this reason, because it is his harvest time, but with us the fallow season. This fallow season he makes more or less. Everything which has to produce fruit needs rest and sleep. And unless the sun were lying fallow, its heat would be equally intense with us in winter as it is in summer. In the meantime, while the sun is lying fallow, the harvest and autumn of the cold stars are substituted, so that during the whole year there shall be no sterility, but fruit shall be constantly produced. Now the snow falls and the north wind blows. Then follow the east and the south winds, which are the attendants of the sun. Thus are produced winter and summer, night and day, and the whole year. In this way is there transition from one autumn to another through the year of the sun and the year of the stars. Moreover, on this subject, it must be remarked that dryness and humidity occur thus. Dryness is in heat, that is, in the sun. There is no other dryness in the whole element of fire, save that which the sun has in himself. Moisture is in cold, that is, in the cold stars, which are of red brightness. This is the true state of the case. Humidity cannot coexist with heat. Heat consumes all moisture and brings back dryness. Coldness never coexists with dryness. What is cold is dissolved if heat coagulates itself. Thus the element of fire is divided into two. In one is dryness, and this is in the sun. And the other is humidity, and this is in the cold. If coldness sometimes seems to be dry, the dryness is only when one sweats in the sun, where that moisture is quite foreign. So is that coldness foreign too. It is true indeed that a humid body on the earth can be dried by the stars, though not on account of their dry nature, but on account of their cold nature, whereby they are able to coagulate so that a thing seems dried up. Thus must their nature be understood as frozen water. Such too is the method of the sun for rendering moist. By its heat it melts wax, so that it liquefies, as does tallow. But what has this to do with the matter? Nothing. These things are only given as illustrations. There is dryness, too, in the stars, for instance, snow, hoarfrost, sleet, hail, lightning, and the like, as metals and stones coming thence. But what is the dryness of snow which does not last? In what respect is a metal dry which returns to its original matter? And so of the sun. Where is his humidity? It does not last. What is it if, indeed, he moistens fat? No sooner has he withdrawn than it is dry again. Afterwards it is no longer moistened. It is the same too with fire. It dries wood so that it never afterwards grows damp again, that is, so long as it is ashes. But what does the star do? It wets Salpala so that it never again returns to dryness, but always remains moist. The stars moisten the rain, which always remains moist and is never again dried. Wherever it is poured out, wherever it breaks forth, it is always moist, always wet. So that which is dry remains in heat. What is wet in cold? Dryness never grows wet, and moisture never grows dry. In like manner, lime remains lime, glass, glass, wine, wine, etc. But in order that the element of fire may be more thoroughly understood, we will, in the first place, describe the sun, the account of which is as follows. All heat is drawn together and rounded out into Magdalene. The whole white light is therein. Thus then, white light and heat make up Magdalene, composed of ignited white sulfur, congested into one body of noblest mercury, preeminent over all the other elements, and coagulated by the most subtle spirit of salt. Out of these three, the sun exists, so dry and so warm that there is place for no humidity, but it would all be consumed. In this way, both the daily rain and whatever water is poured out by the three other elements is consumed by the force of the sun, lest a too copious supply of water should cause inundation. So then, the sun is the death of aqueous nature, both of the sea and of the Rhine, Danube, Nile, and Tiber. They are consumed by the heat of the sun so that they do not increase in volume. Death exists in all things for this very purpose, that they may not increase too much but may keep within bounds. So man has his own form of death, which is invisible. So dryness has its death, namely water. So too, the waters have their death, fire, and it is not true to say that what the fire consumes reappears elsewhere. It perishes entirely in its own form, but the spirit remains, and this the sun consumes. It is the veritable death, consuming and taking away the other three elements, alike with man on the earth and with the bear in the cave. But now to philosophize more about the sun. It regulates its course by divine providence, which decides when and how all things should exist. By this it is arranged that the sun going round the globe rounds out its circle for the sake of this autumn and harvest of the sun. In this course is nothing but day and night, summer and winter, light and darkness, and the darkness which falls upon some lands is intercepted from others in due succession. From this impetus and motion, no wind is aroused, but the sun moves and proceeds just as a ball is driven along the surface of the earth, without any wind arising, or as a ship in the sea, which does not of itself generate any wind. So neither does the sun produce wind. It does not grow warm by its motion, for although the globe should roll on for 100 years, it would not of itself grow warm. If it be warm, it must have been warm before. So the sun going upon its course is a globe, and may be compared to birds in its mode of motion. It even diminishes heat, that is to say, if it be fallow. But its brightness remains always and under all circumstances, for Magdalene is fixed and will remain from the first point of time to the latest in one shape and appearance and one proportion of light, of sulfur, salt, and mercury. These have only 1 year of their fixation, which will endure from the first Iliaster to the last Iliaster, wherein the world will be renewed. I say there is 1 year, the year of the sun. In like manner, all the stars have fixity. That is the year of fire, or the stellar year, yielding place to the time of the year, as if to its own daughter. But now, in due course, we must speak of the other stars in which exists coldness and red brightness, as, for instance, in the moon, planets, and the rest. In this red brightness is a different kind of rest from that in the sun, for the moon has no fallow season, but simply dies and departs. The seed only is left there, from which the new moon is born. And the generation is of such a nature that it gains its power of increase from the sun. Whatever grows does so by force of the sun's heat, and without that heat nothing grows at all. When, therefore, the Creator made the moon after such a manner as that she should wane and wax, he did it for this purpose, that the moon, like seed, should be united with the sun, and should thence acquire her power of increase. Thus it is that she increases and comes to fullness, and then afterwards wanes. For whatever increases, the same also decreases. As man by disease wastes away and dies, so the decrease of the moon is her sickness even to death, wherein she passes away, leaving only her seed behind. The moon is in fact the phoenix of the firmament, from which, when it dies, a new one constantly issues forth. So in like manner there are other stars, and they are made up of the redness of sulfur, mercury, and salt. And there is a cold of sulfur, mercury, and salt too, which has its origin in that virtue from which the sun too received its own. Thus it is that the moon has such strong influence over the earth on account of her coldness and her humidity. She is superior to all the other stars in this element of the coldness of fire. The other stars too are composed of these three primal elements, but still they are divided into many parts. For the cold in the element of fire is divided into 1,000 essences and natures. Thus, in some stars are produced winds circling over the entire globe. In others, snow, rain, and the like have their origin. In truth, so manifold are they, that manifold natures and virtues flow down from them to the earth. And this could not otherwise be the case if there were but one Magdalene, like the sun, possessing only a single nature, heat. Therefore, in the stars there are many cold natures. Now cold produces many more forms of effluence than heat. A warm man is a healthy man. A cold man is exposed to more misfortunes than 20 warm ones. Since, therefore, cold has a nature which is contrary and opposed to the sun, the element of fire is divided into many stars, so that each virtue should exist by itself without the impediment of another nature. From these come forth warm winds, warm showers, warm tempests, and the rest, coruscations, dragons, lance, and the like. Yet all these are cold fire without ardor. On the other hand, what is warm and burns has its origin from accident, as the special chapters demonstrate. An entire section follows on the properties of the stars, as to the necessities they produce, and giving what is necessary for a description of their natures. Concerning winds, note, since the meteorological principles have now been abundantly explained and recognized, the next thing is to impart some information concerning meteoric things generated or their generations. But we will first write of the rise or generation of the winds proceeding from their predestined circles. There are 4 parts of the orb and circle of the winds. One looks to the east, another to the west, a third to the south, a fourth to the north. The manner of the circles is as follows. As in the middle of the firmament there are placed 2 elements, earth and water, and the element of air stands between the element of heaven and the lower globe. As I say, the earth is placed in the middle, and the heaven surrounds it completely, so there proceeds or advances a circle transversely on a level in the middle of heaven, earth, and water, similarly surrounding. In the same way, you will further note that heaven goes around the world with a certain circle. In this circle stand the mother of the winds, and the places whence arise the predestinated winds. If these are about to emerge from that circle, they blow upon the globe through the element of air. But while they are arriving at the rotundity of the terrestrial globe and dash upon it, it is possible that the winds may be either stirred up below the globe and impelled towards those who live below us, or may be driven above the globe to the dwellers on higher, or again may be divided and driven in either direction through the heights and the depths of the globe. Thus the winds are impelled through the air beyond land and sea, and persist until they are worn out by reason of the distance, the way, or the violent motion, etc. Each of these 4 parts has a nature peculiar and proper to itself, for the oriental part is warm and dry, not being so on account of the sun, or because it occupies the east, but because such a nature is derived from the 3 prime principles. Therefore also in the true southeast wind and its satellites no other nature and operation are perceived than warm and dry. On the other hand, the west wind, by the setting of the sun, is cold and humid, not because it rises from the west, for the complexion of the east and the west is one and the same, but because the matter of the winds has been created cold and humid in the west. From the north blow winds of a cold and dry nature, which they also impart to those regions, not that the winds are so affected by the regions, but the regions receive that nature from the winds. The south wind is warm and humid not because much water is accumulated there, or that moist and humid places abound there, but because such is the peculiar nature of this wind, and it is imparted to the region that it occupies. For this is to be observed that the winds acquire no property from without, but are tempered from themselves, and are not affected by their regions. The generations, therefore, of the winds are circular from their proper nature. They are produced from their stars, and the stars are their mothers. Stars of this kind are innumerable in the 4 quarters. From these all the winds proceed, for although winds are also stirred up by the stars of rain or hail, yet they are not enumerated with the circle or the 4 cardinals. And since we have already spoken of the place and dispersion of the winds, because they flow from the farthest heaven across sea and land, it must now be added that those stars have the power of generating winds, and disposing of them according to their nature and quality. As a tree puts forth its fruit out of its internal nature, which consists in wood and marrow, so also the same is to be understood of the stars. But the seed of the winds is the first matter of the 3 principles, salt, sulfur, and liquor. These 3 are the mothers from which are born those fetuses which we call winds. In the northern quarters they are of a cold and dry nature, in the south warm and humid, in the east warm and dry, in the west cold and humid. For as is the nature of the 3 principles, so are their fruits. Moreover, you must know that the winds arise from their stars by rule of time and season, for they retain the nature of the 3 principles. The variations of their strength are in proportion to the distance they have traveled. Boreas is affected by the summer, but not by the winter stars. And if it be impregnated with sulfur, it produces sulfurous maladies. If with salt, it dries up and cracks the skin. The south wind at its proper season, namely in spring, is most healthful. These risings of the winds we are able to prove by a terrestrial example. Water boiling in a jar emits a wind, so do all boiling substances, whether dry or humid. Moist coction, as of water, produces a moist wind. The dry coction, which is known to the alchemist's occasions, a dry wind. There is no other generation of the winds than when the 3 principles are set in motion and driven to their work by Vulcan. This action produces wind and imposes its own nature thereon, whether warm, cold, humid, or dry. We must understand that God has constituted a generation of the firmament of such a nature that the three principles should generate and produce all things in their places to which they were ordained by God, and should by their operations tend towards the center of the earth. Above all things, therefore, it is necessary that the three principles should be rightly recognized. These three principles are all of an igneous nature till they arrive at their operation, that is, at their ultimate matter. Sulfur is a fire which burns, salt nitre burns also, and it is in like manner with mercury. Now, fire cooks wind, and in the generation of winds the stars are vials and cucurbites, containing in themselves meteoric sulfur. Mercury and salt, which operate in these phials by means of our ethereal Vulcan. From these ethereal operations, ethereal works are produced, such as the winds. From earthly examples, we understand the operations of the firmament, not indeed according to one grade, for as the heaven is higher than the earth, so also is it stronger. And as the heaven has more of clarity than has earth of grossness, so much more sublimely graded and intense is its operation. That which is unseen by the eye is judged analogically by things which the eye beholds. But you must know that the hour and time of the generation of those winds must be fundamentally understood by astronomy in all its branches. If the winds blow, they advance to places suited for them. Much concordance produces strong wind. To frequently concord and generate is frequently to excite winds. Many species and a strong Vulcan generate mighty and violent winds, which root up trees and demolish houses. For the wind is, according to its own nature, as corporeal and substantial as stone or any matter hurled down from a great height. And although a stone is one body and wind is another, yet the latter is capable of great bodily destruction, for therein are invisible as well as visible corporealities created by God, diverse in appearance but equal in virtue. Concerning the origin of winds, it is then to be concluded that they are generated in windy stars above, and by the operation of Vulcan they are matured at their proper time, when they dash forth into the center of the globe, transforming all obstacles into their own nature and property. As Boreas coagulates, so the south wind dissolves, the east preserves, the west putrefies. They perform their operation according to their implanted nature. But if they blow at those times when their innate malice is removed from them and modified, they effect nothing of importance. Among other things, the wind exercises great force upon the waters of the sea, stirring up tempests, and so penetrating through everything that it enters through the depths of the sea into the earth itself, whence it again issues through mountains, caverns, etc. In this way, tremblings of the earth are generated, although this is not the sole cause of such occurrences. Wind has the power of penetrating all stones, all metals, and all things without exception. Liber Meteorums, Chapter 5. End note. Through the course of the globe, there are scattered the windy stars which continually bring round their autumn and harvest. They surround Zedok in a circle, and at the same time embrace the globe above and below. As therefore the firmament goes round the globe in its rotundity, and the round globe lies therein. So the stars consist in the circle of Zedok, and the globes touch Zedok in the midst. Two winds, therefore, proceed to the two sides, and separate above and below, that is, one part to the Arctic and the other to the Antarctic pole. These stars are actual stars of the winds, because they blow upon us annually, and have their own year, which is the year of the winds. The other stars of the winds blow above and below us, not according to the year, but sometimes they blow and sometimes they do not, and infringe upon one region only, wherever that may be. The true stars of the winds blow each according to its year continually above and below across the whole globe, and are without hail, without lightning, without frost, without coruscation. There are very many which surround the whole Zedok, like the galaxy, and over against the galaxy is Danaus. Concerning the elementary nature of these stars, it may be said that they are all humid. Antiquity is given to these four names, which we retain, though not with the ancient interpretation. All those stars which are situated at the north throughout the entire Zedok are called Boreas. Sensiturus is dry and cold, yet not altogether dry. It is cold and congelated, that is, its humidity is coagulated, whence it appears dry. Zephyrus comprises the western stars, all being humid and cold, but not congelated. So it is that by comparison with these Boreas is accounted dry, on account of its congelation. The other stars in Zedok, Eurus, and Auster are altogether cold. As soon, however, as the winds issue forth from their stars, they become warm by the sun, whose beams they pass through, and thus they are held to be warm, which they are not by their own nature. Eurus is accounted dry, but is not so. The sun consumes the humidity which it possesses until it comes to that moisture contained within it, which the sun cannot take away. Auster is called humid, and is so because the sun does not take away so much of its humidity as in the case of Eurus. That is prevented by the sea, which supplies to the sun sufficient moisture for its consumption. So Auster, with its humidity, bursts forth on us throughout the lower and the upper part of the globe. As to how wind proceeds from the stars, this must be held to be the method. As the sun pours its heat on the world, so in these stars there is no other nature and property except to produce winds, which are decocted from sulfur, mercury, and salt, and issue forth according to a detch. Their wind is daily, hourly, blowing gently and peacefully over the whole world. So the respective winds must be learnt in the course of our exposition as to the other windy stars. Concerning the temperate stars, Zedok. The following is the theory concerning the stars in the firmament. Note the philosophy concerning the stars in the firmament, and generally concerning the constitution of heaven, is discussed elsewhere at greater length by Paracelsus, and in connection with the four elements. As follows. Of the elements it has been said that they are four. Man has need of these, but they are divided into four complexions, which are by no means as the ancients have imagined them, as, for example, that the earth is cold and dry. This is without foundation. Certainly in some places it is cold and dry, but in others it is cold and wet, while in yet others it is warm and dry. Nevertheless, it is an element that is the mother of fruits. It is called an element, inasmuch as it is the mother of these things, not on account of the complexion. The case is the same with water. This is specified to be cold and humid. It ought certainly to be humid, but not equally cold. At the same time, that humidity is often dry and warm by reason of the virtue. The body itself, in its corporal nature, is humid. The earth is dry, so that its fruit can be conceived in it and come forth from it. So also the heaven is not of one complexion, but of many complexions. It is not fire, but is understood as fire, because it proceeds therefrom. The fire thereof is at times a water, at others a fire, now cold, now warm, etc. We must consider, therefore, that the elements are only matrices, nor are they restricted to one complexion. For as the offspring is, so is that which generated and produced it. Thus, a flammula proceeds from a flammula, and solitrum from solitrum. Accordingly, hearken concerning these things. It pertains to the earth to bear and sustain man and his dwelling place, as also rocks, stones, sand, and all growing things. Hence it is clear that the earth is necessarily compact and solid, so as to be capable of bearing them. Consequently, it is hard, and requires to be cut and plowed. It is in like manner equally necessary for water to be moist, so that fishes may move and swim through it, which can by no means take place on land. The same ought also to produce salt and stones. Now all these things must be humid in their first matter, and must pass from humidity into a coagulate, but that which is born from the earth has seed that is a dry body, such as seeds, roots, trees, etc. For all these things are dry and compacted from the first matter. But in the first matter of water there is no compact body, the whole being liquid. The matrix hereof is from the element of water. In this element grow those ultimate matters, the principle of which is liquid and humid. The third body is the air. This element has need of another kind of body, which must not be humid like water or solid like earth. Out of this element whatsoever things are born have their ingress in the body of the air, just as the fish in water. Man has been surrounded by an aeriform vehicle that he may walk in it, as the fish moves in water. Thus the air also sustains all trees and whatsoever grows. It is necessary, therefore, that the air should be a chaos. Not earth, not water, but something perspicuous, diaphanous, impalpable, invisible, so that the palpable and the visible may be insphered, literally, tenched by it, and may be seen through it as through glass. Furthermore, the heaven is a body of this kind, not humid as the water, not perspicuous as air, nor solid as the earth, but one of another essence, so that heaven is not earthy, however, with terrene compactness. It is also tenuous and permeable as water, but still is not water. It is likewise limpid and perspicuous without being air. It is most comparable to smoke, which is diverse from other bodies in respect of corporality and substance. That is, it is not like stone or wood, earth, water, or air, but is a body without mixture or affinity with others. It is in like manner with heaven, and the bodies which are born therefrom are at once bodies and not bodies, compact and not compact, permeable like water, yet not water, perspicuous and impalpable as air, yet not air. Such a body is the sun, such is the moon, and such are the other stars. Heaven is without complexion in the element of fire, and the matrix out of which fire is generated and grows. For as fire has a certain corporality, so have heaven and the stars, which take their nature and substance from heaven. Consider, therefore, that such corporality is derived from heaven, the peculiar quality thereof, and the very element of fire. And whatsoever fire is about to do, the same is performed by heaven, whence fire proceeds. But we must make inquiry concerning the color of heaven, that of earth tends towards black. Whatsoever is of another color therein belongs to Minera. So water has its own color like through all things. Its color, however, has no name, for it is neither white, nor gray, nor blue, nor green, and yet it can be called all these. Earth, too, is really neither black nor purple, and yet up to a certain point it corresponds with both. The case is the same with air, which is pure and pellucid in chaos, and yet is neither white, nor blue, nor citrine, etc., while it is still partially assimilated to these. So also heaven has its special color, like blue, like red, like green, and yet none of these colors is present therein otherwise than apparently, for elementary bodies are so formed as to have no perfect color by which they may be named. But the things which are produced from them have their distinct, determinate colors, and to these names can be given. Thus, many colors are produced from the elements, and they are therefore composed of many, even of that number which they produce from themselves. From the earth proceed blue, red, black, etc., while from water all colors come forth, and so also from air and heaven. Accordingly, colors are collected from many into one, heaped together and mixed, and such mixture produces no express, determinate, and definite color. Give heed to an example taken from heaven and its fruits. For ye see that everything which grows from the earth has its palpable foot and root, as are trees and herbs, etc. But the stars are the fruits of heaven, yet they do not put forth their roots in heaven, for they stand immovable below the heaven, without any support or attachment. Earth and heaven are opposite in this respect. One yields its fruits with roots, the other without. One tends upwards, the other downwards, and as fishes rest upon nothing, and without feet, swim about in the water. So in like manner stars swim about in the heaven, that is, in the body of heaven, preserving that order which God has prescribed them, some moving at a higher, some at a lower level at different distances apart, and with a quicker or slower motion. The details of this question must be referred to astronomers, but this, at least, should be remembered, that heaven is a body which, like water, is capable of sustaining a swimming thing, yet it is not water, but dry, while that which floats in it is also dry. It is not strictly swimming, but has analogy therewith. It is not going or running, since it is not affected by hands or feet. It is the miraculous work of God, and an element which contains and includes all the rest, and drives them in a round or a circle. The stars were born from heaven, and stand therein as if they flew like a bird through the air, according to the order and circle, even as God has destined and formed them to motion. Having been once formed, they henceforth remain forever the same. The trees and fruits of the earth fall and are reborn. The stars can perish once only, namely at the end of the world. Whatever else is formed in the elements is eaten away by mold, moth, and death. It is only the stars of the celestial heaven which remain in immunity, and yet their fruits rise and fall, as rain, snow, etc. But they have a unique and special color, which is fiery. Thus, earth chiefly displays greenness, though it has also other colors. The sun is peculiar in color, and if the same be igneous, it is not after the manner of wood, but of an element. We must repeat concerning fire that it has been enumerated as one of the elements, but with manifest absurdity. The earth indeed exhibits itself as an element, water in like manner, and so also air. But consider the fourth element. This cannot be fire, for it confers nothing elemental and no fruits upon man, nor does it possess any affinity with man, or vice versa, but it has an altogether fatal power, whereby the soul is separated from the body. It is therefore necessary that heaven should be regarded as the fourth element, for this is akin to man, nor can man dispense therewith, whereas he can dispense with fire and can live without it. The possibility of his dispensing with fire shews that it is not an element, but such rather is that heaven which brings forth day and night, summer and winter, increasing all fruits and helping the other elements. The scripture states that God created the heaven and the earth first. In heaven are the other elements, and even as the jar is made ready before the wine is pressed out. So the element of heaven is in reality the first element which we have named for the fourth. Liber Meteorum, chapter 1. End note. Every star has in it a certain amount of frigidity. This causes winds. Cold is the parent of all winds, but the nature of cold is that some cold produces winds with rain, some with snow, some with hail, and the like. The truth is that all winds, intermittent and temporary, proceed not from Zedok, but are collected from all quarters out of particular stars. The mode in which all winds are generated is as follows. By means of frigidity, the stars periodically beget their own vacuum, which is manifold in character. But as to the winds, the following is the received theory. The stars have their own emunctories, by means of which they excrete those things produced in them to which the emunctories refer. The duration of the wind is as long as that required for the purpose of emptying. The stars Zedok perform this process of emptying every day, and raise up winds in the world for moderating the heat of the sun and dispersing the cold in the frigid portions of the earth. They mitigate both heat and cold, and are the most perfect moderators of summer and of winter alike. When these winds do not obviate such a result, chaos is frozen just like water. The reason why water is frozen is that the winds of Zedok do not penetrate it. They penetrate chaos, and therefore do not allow it to be frozen. There is no other use of winds except to mitigate each season of the year, and to moderate their excesses, which might otherwise do damage. The common nature of all the stars comprised in the sky and the firmament is that every day, nay, every hour and moment, they exude. For the stars attract to themselves the heat of the sun, just as the fruits of the earth absorb the same. The solar heat causes the stars to be resolved from their frigidity. This resolution is one and the same with that of a cold stone, which exudes on account of the vapor which it has acquired from mercury, sulfur, and salt. That vapor exists in all elementated bodies, for as man, by natural exercise and the process of excretion, purges the phlegm from his nostrils, so do the stars also, and all the elements undergo these excretions. This vapor flows down every day from the stars, and falls on the earth. During the day it is consumed by the sun. But by night it glides down to the earth before the sun rises, and is called dew. Through the winter, or during a cold autumn, it is frozen, and becomes hoar-frost. This is nothing else than the exudation of the stars in the whole firmament, which thus falls drop by drop. For as boiling water evaporates upwards towards the sky, or sends its dew on high, so the stars send their exudation downwards. Concerning nebulae. Nebula is nothing else but a vapor of this kind, differing from the former only in this, that while not yet quite matured, it is excreted by certain stars. When it falls to the earth like hoar-frost, it rests on the earth and the water, and is like smoke. It cannot be completely resolved into hoar-frost or dew. A certain part of the vapor passes into dew, the rest into nebula. Nebula is imperfect dew, which has not yet fully matured. If it is thin, it falls to the earth and vanishes. But if it is dense, but not yet prepared, it descends to a higher region of its own, where it is consumed by the sun. If, however, it be mixed with rain clouds, then rain is produced from it, but of a more subtle kind than other rain. Very often nebula of this nature descend and produce a spell of rainy weather. For if the stars are rainy, they cannot be resolved into dew, but only into nebula. But if sometimes they bring clear weather, the cause is that the nebula, being more subtle in its preparation, disappears on the surface of the globe. Note, earth is black, gross, rough, clay, impure, dirty, and nothing could be cruder. Water is more subtle, pure, and clear, so that the eye can penetrate far into its depths. The air is completely pellucid and intangible, so perfectly purified that nothing foreign can be seen in it. Heaven is, however, by far superior to the air, but though it is the clearest of all the elements, it is yet a body, which is proved by the fact that its fruits are bodies such as rain, snow, hail, the thunderbolt, etc. For a body can only be generated from a body. But inasmuch as the heaven is more subtle than the earth, so are its fruits in comparison, and not only in subtlety but in operation. We have said enough of the heaven, but there remains something to be imparted concerning the stars and their risings. The stars bear the same relation to the sky as do trees to earth, but whereas trees have their roots in the earth, the stars are without foundation in heaven. The reason is this: trees do not need to be removed from the place where they are planted, but the stars must describe their orbit, for which reason they are separated from the heaven, while at the same time they are in the heaven. At the same time, they do not remove from their own mansions any more than the tree from its garden. Now, so often as there is a new genus among trees, there is likewise a new genus among stars. The same must be understood of herbs and all things that grow on the earth. Growing things correspond exactly to the number of influences in stars. Every genus corresponds to its like. But as some trees produce pears and others apples, so some stars yield rain, others snow, hail, etc. And in this fashion is generated whatsoever falls from heaven. The qualities which are specialized on earth exist more strongly in the heaven, because that element is superior to earthly things. And as the magnet attracts towards itself, so also the stars attract in the heaven. Accordingly, as certain natures on earth are dry and others humid, so throughout the whole firmament some stars are drier than others. Concerning the operations of the stars, they are produced out of congenital properties, and they arise from the three prime principles. That meteorology is false, which makes absurd statements about the heat of the sun, of its motion, or other modes of generation, made by attraction from the earth. There is no star which attracts rain, and then again pours it down. The operation of rain proceeds from a nature congenital thereto. Even summer and winter are produced from the stars, the sun being supreme among those of the calorific kind, which arises at the beginning of summer, and are strengthened by their own heat till they reach the supreme grade, when again they gradually fail. Then the winter stars rise in their turn, display their own nature, afterwards die out, and are succeeded by another summer. The varying cold of winter and the varying heat of summer are occasioned by mutations in the potency of the respective stars. The moon is chief among the stars of winter, and is furnished with no small escort. Were the summer stars to fail, there would be no summer, for the sun, whether high or low, dispenses an even heat. Unless, therefore, the summer stars were to arrive, perpetual winter would prevail. The summer stars, however, derive their increment from the sun. So also we must not assign a diverse origin to day and night. The day arises from the light of the sun, but the night from the light of the moon. The departure of the sun by no means causes night. It is the peculiar nature of certain stars to produce darkness, which is so gross that unless the moon interfered with her presence, nothing whatever would be visible. Such a course, therefore, has God imposed upon the stars, that, going round the whole firmament, they retain their order and continual progress. For lest they should cease, or have a general holiday, God has ordained that when some are absent, others are present to fulfill their operations. So the nocturnal stars take the place of the receding sun. The bodies of the three prime principles are the cause of those bodies whence day and night proceed. The sun is a perspicuous and diaphanous salt, clarified and extracted from these principles, being purified from all obscurity. Its brilliancy has been extracted from the mass of the first matter of heaven. And whereas that is a white brilliancy which has been digested into the sun, so has a red into the moon and stars. The transparency and perspicuity of the white were extracted in sulfur, salt, and liquor to make the sun thereof. Afterwards, the brilliance of the red was put into a body of sulfur. Thus salt is the body of the sun, sulfur that of the moon, while liquor is the body of darkness. Ibid. Chapter 3. Endnote. Concerning metals, minerals, and stones from the upper regions, text 1. Concerning metals. Note, metallic natures also subsist in the element of fire, for as in heaven there are stones, so also there are metals, but differentiated beyond all recognition from those of earth. Fiery thunderbolts with their coruscations are only metals, harder than all iron or steel, flexible as copper, mixed with colors, and formed like a thunderbolt. Their fall is solely owing to some miraculous conjunction of elements which produces them in bodily form. Many marvelous matters are carried up into the heaven and fall down to us. If it were possible for the stars of mercury, salt, and sulfur to be joined in a like copulation, several impressions of this kind would fall hourly. But the disposition of things is not favorable herein, except in the case of the thunderbolt. Dr. Maturis. Book 2, End Note. The metals which come from the upper regions derive their origin from the 7 planets. But these planets are manifold. There are many suns, many moons, many Marses, Mercuries, Jupiters, and Saturns. They are only called 7 because they produce 7 metals, and one kind of metal is ascribed to each planet. Those are not planets which the astronomers point out, and they are in error when they assign these to the metals, nor are they unanimous among themselves in what they do say. From these 7 kinds of planets proceed the 7 metals, and they are the same in the first 3, just as in the element of water. The only difference is that in the first 3 they are volatile, not fixed in their species. In this way, the metals which are found do not stand the test of the lower metals. Neither, again, do the lower metals stand the test of the superior ones. There is not one and the same ductility or flexibility or hardness in the one as in the other. Neither are they uniform in color. There is a distinct difference in them. So again, there is a volatile nature of this kind in the element of fire, which is the metallic operation and nature of all the 7 stars, which also falls down from them to the earth at the same time, just like rain and similar effluxes. Many such metals lie under their own stars, some in Asia, a few in Africa, and fewer still in Europe. These stars do not reach our earth, so that these metals are not found amongst us. All those grains, however, which are among the 7 metals and are rough in external appearance, come down from the stars and not from the element of water. And all the metals which are coagulated without fire and are rounded in shape like pulse, of whatever kind they are, have come down from the 7 stars, whether they lie above them or not, and the earth strikes against them just as rivers do. But where they are found is neither their source nor their root, but they come forth just like kidneys. Their origin is in the stars, and all have come down from thence. For there in the element of fire is no rudeness or density to mix itself up. It purges itself according to its own stars, and coagulates of itself purely and entirely. These metals, just like those in the element of water, exist in commixture with sulfur, salt, and mercury, save that the igneous metals have not a watery fixation, just as the aqueous metals have not a firmamental fixation. The same ductility or flexibility or hardness in the one as in the other. Neither are they uniform in color. There is a distinct difference in them. So again, there is a volatile nature of this kind in the element of fire, which is the metallic operation and nature of all the 7 stars, which also falls down from them to the earth at the same time, just like rain and similar effluxes. Many such metals lie under their own stars, some in Asia, a few in Africa, and fewer still in Europe. These stars do not reach our earth, so that these metals are not found amongst us. All those grains, however, which are among the 7 metals and are rough in external appearance, come down from the stars and not from the element of water. And all the metals which are coagulated without fire and are rounded and shaped like pulse, or whatever kind they are, have come down from the 7 stars, whether they lie above them or not, and the earth strikes against them just as rivers do. But where they are found is neither their source nor their root, but they come forth just like kidneys. Their origin is in the stars, and all have come down from thence. For there in the element of fire is no rudeness or density to mix itself up. It purges itself according to its own stars, and coagulates of itself purely and entirely. These metals, just like those in the element of water, exist in commixture with sulfur, salt, and mercury, save that the igneous metals have not a watery fixation, just as the aqueous metals have not a firmamental fixation. Text second when, then, the 3 primals have completed their effect in the metallic star, as when, in the star of the sun, a composition has been formed of the mercury of the sun with the solar sulfur and salt. Then they are digested into a perfect metal by Audiobook, who shapes there from the form of his own gift. Then at length the star throws off its efflux, warm and liquefied, as if from some furnace. This is shaken and falling, is coagulated in the cold, and lights upon the globe. In the same way, also, the star of the moon makes a composition of mercury, sulfur, and salt. When these are brought to their effect, just as in the case of the sun, it casts them forth. The same thing takes place with Saturn, Mars, Venus, Mercury, and Jupiter. It must be remarked, however, that out of the 7 kinds of the 7 stars, each one embraces the 3 primals of one metal, not as in the element of water, wherein one airs the 7 are latent. The names of the 7 metals, therefore, bear reference to the 7 metals not of the earth but of the stars in. The same way, too, many liquids fall down from the stars, being not yet in a state of coagulation. If the earth be moistened with these, a brightness rises thence like kashmii, talcs, and sometimes marcasites, though it does not fully and perfectly arise from any of these, nor perfectly bears reference to the same. Hence it will be inferred that the superior metals excel those of the lower earth by many degrees, in goodness, in purity, and in nature, and so in all respects deserve greater praise. Text 3, concerning the stones from above. Note: in the height of the firmament stand the 3 principles from which impressions arise. These are so high and so lofty that we cannot behold their form, and yet they have a form. We see, however, the green which is their color. Hence it is gathered that in the element of fire generations of stone also take place. But where stones are generated, they fall. Although this be considered wonderful, rare, and unheard of, it more frequently happens in the sea than with us. The generations of these stones take place as follows. If the principles of thunderbolts are present, any number of thunderbolts may be generated, for with every peal there is a stone. The matter of such stones exists first of all in an aerial condition, and is afterwards coagulated into an earthy one, so that the air can retain them no longer, and they ultimately fall to the earth. Furthermore, the matter of these stones may collect into one place in the absence of any tempest, but it will remain aerial until it comes in contact with a contrary nature, when it will at once begin to coagulate and to fall, even as a cloud is precipitated downward in the form of rain. Ibid. End note. In the same way, there are also other stars which cast forth from themselves gems, granites, and other forms of stones. For sulfur, salt, and mercury in the element of fire possess a powerful force for generating gems. There are many stars which consist of ruby sulfur, many of sapphire salt, and many which are powerful in emerald mercury. There are also stars which contain the primals of copper, vitriol, salt, or alum. Hence, many of this kind appear rainy. If these are prepared, they manifest themselves. From these stars are generated sapphires of lazurium. There salt is the body, solidly coagulated with pure sulfur and with the spirit of mercury. In the emerald, mercury is the body, having the nature but not the body of copper. It has its color but not its body from copper. In this way, all the colors of gems which proceed from fire are found in proportion to the nature and condition of the 3 primals which are found united in the ratio of colors in the metals. For instance, in copper, there is redness. But these three primals, if they have not a metallic body, become green. So from silver, if the metallic body be wanting, lasurium is produced. From iron, a red body. From lead, the same. From Jupiter, a clay-colored one mixed with white. From gold, a purple body. From Mercury, one that is saffron-colored. In like manner, also, if only the salt predominates, it produces various colors, such as are conspicuous in certain stones, purple or blue, either lightly or deeply impressed. Equally too, that which comes only from mercury is marked by many colors, saffron, red, etc. That which is from sulfur has for its prevailing colors white, red, saffron, black, cerulean, and so on. These stones are very rare, and those which are of a metallic nature are exceedingly precious. Thus, the emerald is a copper stone, the carbuncle or jasper is a golden stone, the ruby and chalcedony are iron stones. The sapphire lazurius is a silver stone, the white sapphire is a stone of Jupiter, the jacinth is a mercurial stone. After this manner, then, stones are generated in their own stars, which closely adjoin the planets, and then are ejected, just as metals are ejected, and so are found in the loftiest parts of the earth, according to the ratio of their generation. Text 4 concerning crystals and beryls. Of crystals and beryls, it should be known that they are generated from the snowy stars, which produce snow in the following manner. In the snowy stars, the power of congelation is so strong that sometimes they are of a double nature. That is, one and the same star contains within it both snow and congelation, and so becomes twofold. Now, a star of this nature, which has gained at the same time the power of congealing and also of producing snow, easily generates the crystal, the citrine, and the beryl. For if snow falls and frost accompanies it, and moreover, a place be given to him on the globe where Boreas predominates, while the sun or the solar nature does not prevail strongly, then the water which is in combination with the snow is coagulated into a stone. Now, if this water is caught by an intense frost midway, while the snow is falling, stones are formed from it before they fall on the globe. Thus, large or small granules are found in proportion as the frost has caught the snow in falling. But if the seizing has not been so sudden, the frost collects and drives together all the water contained in the snow, which, however, is not itself snow, into one center towards the bottom of the earth. And when it is massed there, coagulates it into ice. This, however, does not again liquefy like other frozen bodies, nor is it dissolved, and that because it is derived from snow water. Other waters, it is true, which are frozen, are partly snowy, but the snow is dissolved with them. Here this should not take place, but the water is extracted from the snow. The fact that the snow remains happens only through the snowy star, wherein also the power of congelation subsists, so that, wherever they meet in one place on the earth, the snow is not liquefied, but goes on to the end of the intention or operation. In snows of this kind are produced stones, such as crystals and the like, pure and dark together, for this reason, because excess of mercury and salt have clarified and purified themselves. Very often, too, crystals, beryls, and citrines of this sort are found in places which are not snowy. The reason of this is that they have been coagulated in the higher regions and have fallen down in that form. They are nothing but coagulated snow water, but their shape and species and angularity are bestowed upon that in proportion as the salt in them exists in a subtle or a dense state. Book 3 concerning the element of earth, text 1. Concerning the earth per se. To philosophize concerning the element of earth, its matter was first made on the following principle. Its three primals were separated, as if out of the great Iliaster, from the two primal elements into another form in nature, so that in the beginning not only the element of earth, but the element of water was segregated. And these were afterwards joined together into one globe, which is the center of the exterior elements. From these two elements, first the earth was completed, afterwards the water. But concerning the earth, it should be known that all the force and nature which lay hid in the great Iliaster for nourishing not only man, but cattle, by means of food and other necessaries, were collected into the element of earth, and consisted of all trees, herbs, and other growths. But they were so divided from the other three elements that this virtue exists in the element of earth alone, and not in any other element. Therefore, this Iliaster is peculiar to the element of earth, so as to afford aliment. For this cause the earth is called, and is, an element, because therein consist all the force and power of nourishing things which are due to living beings. Text 2, these three, sulfur, salt, and mercury, are the earth, taken out of the great Iliaster, out of that nature which is the element of earth. For there the element and the three others were one Iliaster, in which the four elements existed. They were, however, divided one from the other, and the Iliaster was divided. Nevermore then can the four elements from henceforth be joined or stand together, but each subsists separately by itself in its own place. Those therefore labor in vain who endeavor to separate the four elements, or to seek besides these a fifth essence. From these three primals, disjoined from the other elements, was the matter of the earth produced, in such form as it now is and is seen. And as the air was made heaven, the fire, the firmament, the water, the sea, etc., so did separation bring it about that this element should pass into matter and end in a globular form, and that in it should be included all the virtues of trees, herbs, fungi, so that from it should be procreated in the world all those genera which had been silently sown and had lain hid within it. Text 3 in this element of earth was hidden the seed of wood, of roots, of herbs, of fungi, and also the force whereby the stem rises and is formed and planted according to the will and pleasure of its cultivator. The seed is here invisibly proceeding from the nature of the element, which alone is that seed, as the abode and seed of the same, in which it is elaborated and prepared. But originally that force is separated into its own genus, so that the two do not remain joined in one, but each genus exists solely and separately, one in wood, a second in the herb, a third in fungus. Each of these, again, passes separately, this into cedar, that into anthos, this, again, into balsam, and that into botan. Note, in the botan, the pine, and the fir, there exist two kinds of sulfur. One passes away into coagulation, the other is separated therefrom, and is not coagulated. From the sulfur which is susceptible of coagulation, the wood of the trees is prepared, and the same abounds in salt. It is owing to this sulfur that wood burns, and it goes on burning so long as there is sulfur in it. Whatsoever remains is salt, and this is in the form of ashes, and that truly is salt which the sulfur in trees coagulates into wood, whence glass is made. For salt is fluid, and this glass is the ultimate matter of any salt of wood whatsoever. But the other sulfur, which is not susceptible of coagulation, gives terebinth, resin of the fir and pine, which inheres chiefly in the wood, and by reason of its subtlety penetrates through the pores outside the bark, either by liquefaction or by a natural resolution. The sulfur which is in botan is more subtle than the sulfurs of the fir or pine, while that of the pine is more subtle than that of the fir. But all three are of one generation, proceeding from the aniadius, which is united through mercury. The bark is nothing else but sulfur coagulated after the manner of resin, and it is adduced into this form by the aniadius. For it is a hard congealed sulfur. And as there is no outside in any body without hardness, so is the bark formed from the hardest parts of the sulfur which exists in a growing thing. The branches, the shoots, etc., as also the fruits, proceed in like manner from the aniadius and derive their special form and character therefrom. This is to be understood also concerning other trees. Dr. Elemento Terrae, Tract 2, Text 1, Endnote. Of herbs too, one passes into meligia, another into a lily with thorns, and so with the rest. But in order that this seed may be rightly understood according to its distribution, it should be remarked that in the separation of the great aniadius, the nature of trees was collected into one place, botan into a second, and ebony into a third. So too with others. Equally too, the great aniadius so disposed of herbs that into one portion of earth was cast grass, into a second trefoil, and into a third lavandula. For so to each land is given its own herb and its own tree. We should pay attention to what has been the distribution made by the aniadius. Text 4, as to why the aniadius thus fell among trees, so that in one soil should be produced the orange, in a second the plum, in a third the fig, and in a fourth acorns. The cause may be supposed to have been that the fig and the orange required their soil to be of a peculiar kind, which should be favorable to their increase, just as they also require an appropriate climate. If now the soil be unsuitable and the climate ill-adapted, the one fruit or the other cannot emerge, but its seed of necessity perishes and never bursts forth. For though it be present there and lie in the earth, it is nevertheless dried up by the climate and oppressed by the unfavorable constitution of the soil, which is varied by the variety of the climate, not by its own nature. For the soil is everywhere one, but variety and change accrue to it from the climate, which either encourages or impedes the growths themselves. The sun burns up the genus of lilies or some other genus, but this rarely happens, for the seed is ready to hand, which nature produces from the tree or flower. This material seed is the cause why the sun cannot burn up the whole genus of this or that flower or tree, but allows it to come to a condition of vigor, unless perchance it happens that the force of the sun is less than suffices for fertility. Thus, in the work of planting, herbs and trees are produced which, on account of the aforesaid defect in the soil, would not otherwise be forthcoming. Text 5, but we must proceed with our philosophy of the earth. The fruits proceeding from the element of earth are twofold. The earth either produces them of itself or by means of seed. In this way, all growths are produced by the element out of the soil in two ways. That is to say, either from the proper seed of the soil or from seed entrusted to the earth. The proper seed is when the earth puts forth a herb which springs from itself. Seed that is sown is foreign and not proper. Here the gifts of herbs are twofold. Neither spelt, nor wheat, nor lily, nor pear tree, nor anything of this kind grows spontaneously out of the earth, but all have to be sown. Here the philosophy of this treatise is deep, to find out whence come those seeds which do not issue from the earth itself. If neither spelt nor wheat be sown, none of these things will be produced. But herbage and grass do grow. Herbage and grass, therefore, are growths of the earth itself, not like apple trees and cherry trees. So there remains another philosophy by which we learn whence are produced spelt, whence apple trees and pear trees. You must know that the seeds of all these growths are propagated from paradise, sown outside it, then planted and cultivated far and wide. These fruits of paradise come to be understood in the same way as we understand that Christ was God and yet a mortal man. Text 6 says to the method whereby the seed passes into its shoot, it must be known that the seed takes from the earth nothing more than its increment and formative power. The other is from paradise and is taught in the Paramerum, but as to how much of an element is taken from the earth. As to the method whereby the seed passes into its shoot, it must be known that the seed takes from the earth nothing more than its increment and formative power. The other is from paradise and is taught in the Paramerum. Note, every seed is threefold. That is, the seed is one, but three substances exist and grow therein. But even as the seed appears one, so are these three to be understood as one only. Every individual thing is united in its seed, and not divided, but the same is a conjunction of unity. An illustration may be taken from trees, which have their bark, their wood, and their roots, which are distinct in themselves, and yet coexist in a single seed. Paramerum, Book 2, Chapter 1. End note. But as to how much of an element is taken from the earth, that may be understood from the fact that in the beginning the three primals of the earth mix with the seed, so that it tends towards the end destined for it, and becomes that which it is before. For the seed is that which is of itself, but not yet manifested. Out of this proceeds first the root, from this afterwards the stalk. From the root and stalk issue forth the branches. From these three burst out the leaves. After this appear the flowers and fruits. This shoot or growth is formed by the great Aeneadius and is like a man. It has its skin, which is the bark. It has its head and hair, which are the root. It has its figure, its signs, its mind, its sense in the stalk, the lesion whereof is followed by death. Its leaves and flowers and fruit are for ornament, as in man-hearing, vision, and the power of speech. Gums are its excrement, and the parasite is its disease. Philosophize as we will about its growth, this is nothing more than its aeneatic nature, which arranges all forms and directs them into their essence for which they were created. Its death and passing away are the period of its years. A pear tree will stand for 10 or 20 years. After that time it dies. Thus a shoot or a tree growing in the earth dies according to the time appointed for its death. Its decay is the element of fire. That is, fire destroys wood, leaves, grass. Whatever is left in the field decaying and passing into rottenness is consumed by the sun and the movement of the galaxy, so that it is no more left on the earth than as though it had never grown there, as happens to wood in the fire. Thus are growing things consumed and eaten away, so that no relic remains, but all are removed like dust. The very remnants are so dispersed by a strong wind that not a fragment survives and remains at the expiration of a year. Text 7 since then, trees, herbs, corn, and vegetables are produced out of the earth. The power of this element should before all else be learnt, because some growing things are food. An aliment, as vegetables and fruits, others are drink, as grapes and berberis. Others purge the body, like turbith, hellebore, and colocynth. Others strengthen it, as cinnamon, caraways. Mace. Others have their virtue in the root, as parsnip and gentian. Others in the leaves, as potherbs and cabbage. Others in the flowers, as oxtongue. Others in the fruits, as apples, pears, etc. Others in the seeds, as pepper, nuts, and the like. Now, it is worthwhile to know how all these things take place. It is the Aeneadius of the earth who thus distributes them. The nutrimental virtues he arranges in 3 parts: the seed, the roots, the extremities. Thus the apple is a fruit on the tree because the Aeneadius thrusts it forth and shapes the fruit into the form of an apple, or a pear, or a fig, etc. In the nucleus is a species of seed, as in wine there is a species of drink. So then, the Aeneadius before man operates the first preparation, and man directs the second for his own convenience. After these, whatever is of a laxative nature degenerates into another growth, as into the mountain brook willow, the rabarbarus, or hermodactylos. Whatever is of a sweet nature passes into sugar, phonograecum, licorice root, and flowers. Note, as out of the element of earth trees pass off into wood, so in the same element there is a certain sulfur which can be separated and passes off into food. Of this kind are vegetables and cereals. Dry and humid sulfurs are united, being the three principles duplicated according to nature and essence. One of these is for use, the other is not. Thus the avena is sulfur, but it is not edible. The seed, however, is edible. The non-acyl sulfur is first of all developed into stalk, etc., and subsequently the acyl sulfur is collected into the grains of the cereal. De Elemento Terrae, Tract 3, Text 1, end note, hence it is that pears and figs derive their sweetness, and bees their honey. Bitterness turns to amarissima, warmth to pepper and grains of paradise, coolness into nenuphar and camphor. For as in the element of fire, everything by itself is divided from another, so also the virtue of the element of earth is divided to its own growth. And yet it often happens that two or three natures link in a single substance. So in cassia there are heat, sweetness, and a laxative nature. In mace there are odorness and strengthening power. Such is the case with many others, and yet one does not on that account destroy the other. In the same way, the power of the element of the earth either makes for health, as in the tare, in Persica and Gomandria, or it is of a consolidating nature, as in the comfrey and the red artemisia, or in the odor, as in the lily of the valley in Narcissus, or in its stench, as in the danewort. These are all either produced from the Aeneadius, or distributed for the use of those who live on the earth. In this way, the mighty gifts are learnt, just as the virtues of the elements which have flowed down from the great Iliaster. Book 4 concerning the element of water with its fruit. Text 1 concerning the element of water. The first things to be considered are: what is its origin, into what divisions it is broken up, and what the element is per se. The element of water is a seed from Ile, bringing forth stalks and fruits, that is, water and its fruits, such as stones and metals of various kinds. Concerning the seed of the element of water, it must be laid down that it is latent in its workshop, just as seed lies in the soil. From this workshop proceed the stalk and its branches and fruits in this way. Out of the seed is produced the stalk, breaking out of the soil into the light, whilst it remains lying in the earth. For as the element of earth bears its fruit in the body of chaos, so, in like manner, the earth is a body which sustains growing things such as trees and fruits from the tree of the element of water. There is no element but requires a body by which it may be sustained. Chaos bears impressions. The element of fire sustains the fruits of the earth bears up the fruits of water, the water those of the air. Thus the fruits of each element are borne by some other element. Now, as from the seed of the element issues its tree, so its tree is a flowing stream, distributed throughout the whole earth. All things are one tree, with one origin, one root, from one stalk, and the streams of the whole globe are the branches of this one stalk. All the humor of the whole globe is abrasax, which falls down from the branches of this tree, and pervades all the pores of the globe with its distillation. For, as the fragments from the fir trees fall down from above to the earth, so these branches from the water fall down into the hollows of the earth. In this way takes place the generation of the element of water. All the water and all its fruits come forth from the element of water, but they are not the element itself. The element itself is never seen by any, and yet, nevertheless, there is an element of water. From it emanates nothing but water. It is called an element on account of the water and its fruits, not on account of its own complexion and quality, just as is the case with the other elements. Text 2, but concerning its course and goal, as also its seats and termini, the truth is that the tree has its exit and end of itself, rises and falls, is produced and perishes. Thus, all water that flows forth from it is new, not old, and was never before seen. For, as the element of water lies in the middle of the globe, so the branches run out from the root in its circuit on all sides towards the plains and towards the light. From this root very many branches are born. One branch is the Rhine, another the Danube, another the Nile, etc. So, there are also smaller branches, all born out of that root which rises from the seed, whence proceeds the element of water. And all the stalks belong to one tree, which is born of the root along a triple line in the circle of the outer firmament of the two elements, fire and air. So then, the tree is distributed by this triple line over the universal globe, tending towards the light. So the stalk and its branches grow out from the center of the globe until they reach the two external elements where the line ends. It does not go on to its own body, or iliatum. For unless the iliatum were so placed in that position, every tree would spring right up to the sky, extending itself further outside the earth than from above, where it is fixed in the earth. So neither do the fruits of the element of the earth grow farther than to the prescribed limit of the iliatum, which is the lower chaos of the earth, not occupying more of the earth than the height to which growing things rise. Chaos, therefore, is twofold. That which is above is the chaos in which fire is sustained, and unless the iliatum were opposed, the element of earth would extend its fruits to the mid-heaven. So too the element of water. The course and progress of the stalk of the tree is that it goes on to its iliatum above the plane of the earth, where its height ends. But how far it extends since it lies in its iliatum, this must be sought from philosophy, because all the branches reach their iliatum in the sea, where they all meet. For as there is one root, so is it compelled to reach one summit or canopy, which is the sea. The sea itself is of itself neither the stalk nor the tree, but as it were the canopy of the stalk, which is not first or proximately born from the root, but composed of the branches. Why it is salt is on account of its position, and because salt waters flow together into it, as will hereafter be shewn where we speak about the subject of salts. The cause of its ebb and flow is that all the fruits, or the humors, flow down by night, but by day they swell to a height that is clissus. And this clissus in water is the same as in other fruits, increasing and decreasing, going and returning. Text 3 now, since it is well to know all these things, so their death, that is, their consumption, should be understood. Nothing is free from this consumption. It should be understood then that everything, when it comes to its iliatum, is subject to putrefaction and is consumed. Putridity is a kind of consumption, and the passing away of that thing to which it appertains, so that it is consumed just as if it had never existed. This is the operation of its nature. As nature produces things, so does she again remove them. As the thing proceeds from nothing, so it returns to nothingness again. Hence it is clear that the element of water itself is subject to putrefaction or corruption. If it comes to its canopy, that is to the sea, it grows putrid and is consumed of itself, no extraneous agency being accessory thereto, but through its own nature and arrangement. As the fire consumes and extinguishes itself, so, in like manner, does the water. This is the way, then, in which the tree of the element of water and its branches are distributed. What fruits lie hid in it remain to be seen, as also concerning their nature and the generation of the outgrowths. The nature and property of this element is that some of its fruits it bears within itself, others it casts out, and some it altogether throws away. It must also be separately learnt concerning this in how many modes of nature and essence its effluents and streams arise. But in order that all things born of water may be understood in its death, it should be realized that the branches, but not the fruits, pass away to their canopies. Concerning the death of fruits, it should be said that they are, in that hour, they are consumed. As lastly, it should be understood and held on the subject of drachum. Text 4, by way of simplifying any study concerning the origin of fruits, we will consider that the following are the fruits of the element of water. Notes, the fruits of water are born from the seed of Ares. Archias, who is the separator of the elements and of all things which lie in them, divides one thing from the other and collocates it into its place. And the seed of the element of water, Archias, removes everything and ordains it into its nedion, for the iliatum of the earth separates the germs of salt from all other natures, and in like manner the germs of sweet water and things which are of an acid quality. When he has divided these things and adduced them into nedion, the operation of nedion goes on into iliatum, together with its maturation to which it is ordained. De elemento aquae sv. De genere Basalium, chapter 1. End notes. Salts, minerals, gems, and stones. There are, therefore, 4 kinds of growths out of the seed of the element of water in this way. Sweet water is the stalk. Afterwards, its nature is manifold in the matrix. One matrix is of salt, one of minerals, one of gems, and lastly one of stones. Note, metals, minerals, and stones, while they are all generated out of water, do yet owe their development and perfection to the element of earth. There is a twofold corruption of these substances, one which results from a too prolonged connection with the foreign element, and the proper corruption which takes place in their own element, even as the fruit at last passes into putrefaction on its own trees. De Naturalibus Acis, Book 3. End note. Each of these again is divided in a different way. For instance, there are 3 fruits of salt, vitriol, and alum, and each of these has many genera ranged under it. There are many kinds of salt, many of vitriol, many of alum. Note, for example, the origin of vitriol, as also of alum, is as follows. For a salt is extracted solely according to its own essence, so also are separated vitriol and alum. But the form which is manifested in salt, even as in vitriol and alum, is known from this, that all the fruits of the element of water are minerals and share the nature of metals. But from all those things which arise out of salts, none is more akin to mineral virtue than vitriol, because the salts are minerals, and all minerals lie hidden in one mass in airs. But vitriol is the ultimate in the separation of minerals. It is followed as closely as possible by the separation of metals, of which Venus is the first. Hence vitriol adheres to the nature of Venus. It is partly salt and partly mineral. So in every vitriol there is copper, and by reason of this metallic affinity, vitriolic salt is of venereal nature. Copper, in like manner, is combined with vitriol. Indeed, its generation instructs us that it is wholly vitriol. At the same time, vitriol in itself remains a salt, and derives its body from the liquor of the metals. For this reason, it acquires a certain fiery quality and brilliancy. Alumen, on the other hand, by no means has affinity with metals, but is a free salt, consisting solely of acetosity, and having a body which is devoid of earthy quality, unlike vitriol, which arises solely from a permixture of metallic bodies. Hence it exhibits a similitude with marcasites and cachemiae, which come forth in the first generation of metals. The medium which unifies and conglutinates copper with vitriol is a phlegma, de elemento aquae sv de generibus celium. End note. Some are metals, some marcasites, some cachemiae, but even these, again, singly admit of more kinds. There are 7 metals, 9 marcasites, 12 cachemiae. So in turn, every metal by itself is manifold, as fixed gold and not fixed, fixed silver and not fixed, and Venus is both copper and zinc. Such also is the case with the others. So there is a vast variety of marcasites and cachemiae. As to their origin and progress, their autumn and the rest, as for example, their harvest and ingathering. Suffice it to say that all the fruits proceeding from the element of water are divided into their branches and trees. So salt has its own mode of egress, together with sweet waters, even to the boundary of its iliatum. The same is the case with the rest, but with regard to their division and separation, all such fruits consist of one root, out of which each nature is separately born according to its condition. So from one seed is born one tree, and in this the wood, the bark, the fruit, the leaves are all separate, yet all are but one tree. So also from one root innumerable fruits are produced, but each fruit passes to its own iliatum and triple line, as the founder has arranged. If therefore the distribution proceeds in this way from isle into its own stalk, and fruit is produced after its kind, then different things are found proceeding from the element of water. On one stalk salt, on a second a mineral, on a third something else. As therefore in the earth every seed produces its own fruit, so the seed of water is the seed of numberless things springing forth from it. Now if these are brought to their iliatum and await their autumn tide, then at length the autumn and harvest come for the fruit of every branch, which fruit is in itself of this autumn tide and this generation. Here ends the philosophy on the generation of elements.